Welcome to She Persisted. I'm your host, Sadie Sutton. Every Friday, I post interviews about mental health, dialectical behavioral therapy, and teenage life. These episodes break down my mental health journey, teach skills to help you cope with life, and showcase testimonials from individuals, including teens just like you. Whether you've struggled yourself or just want to improve your mental fitness, this podcast is your inspiration to live a life you love and keep persisting. This week on She Persisted.
This sounds so simple and fundamental, but just taking some time to slow down and just breathe and reminding yourself that everyone else is going through the same things and we're all struggling with certain things and it's okay to struggle.
This week's DBT skill is going to be the what and how skills from the mindfulness module. The mindfulness skills from DBT are one of my favorite ways to practice self-care, self-love, and improve my self-confidence. So the what and how skills are two acronyms. The first one is NEO, and that stands for non-judgmentally, effectively, and one mindfully. And the what skills, the acronym there is POD, participate, observe, describe. So the what skills are what you're doing when you're being mindful. You're observing your thoughts, you're observing your emotions, your behaviors, what's going on around you, what can you hear, what can you see, etc. You are then describing what you are seeing, hearing, feeling, thinking, etc. And you are fully participating in the moment. So you are sitting with your thoughts, you are breathing in and out, you are not thinking about what is happening tomorrow or what happened last week. You are fully participating, doing one thing at a time. And while you are participating, observing, and describing, the way that you are doing that, how you are doing that is non-judgmentally. You are not adding good or bad or judgment words. You are just stating what happened. So for example, if you're feeling self-conscious and a thought goes through your head like, I don't like this about myself, you would say, I notice I am feeling self-conscious right now. I just had the thought that I don't like this certain thing about myself. Or you would label the thing that you don't like about yourself without attaching a positive or negative words, emotions to it. You are observing and describing in a non-judgmental manner. Like I just touched on, you are doing this one mindfully, one thing at a time. You are fully present in the moment. And lastly, you are being effective. You are being as skillful as possible. This one I don't feel is as applicable to mindfulness when you're practicing it through a self-care perspective. I feel like it comes into play a lot more when you're interacting with others, but you are being as skillful as possible. You are being effective. So maybe that means giving yourself some more affirmations. Maybe that means really focus on not attaching positive or negative judgments. Maybe that means doing a little bit more self-care and distraction after this mindfulness process if it brings up a lot of emotions. You are being skillful, effective, for what you know works for you in the situation. So that is the DBT mindfulness what and how skills. What you're doing is participating, observing, and describing, and how you're doing that is non-judgmentally, effectively, and one mindfully. So with that extra skill in your toolbox, let's dive into it. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of She Persisted. If you are new, welcome. I'm so excited you're here. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes. We have a lot of fun content coming in 2022, and I can't wait. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. Today I have a great episode for you with Paige Tonz. She is a girl athlete mindset mentor, so we dive into everything: student athlete mental health, increasing confidence, improving self-talk, building relationships with people that encourage you to grow and improve, finding mentors, just so many things that are relevant to so many teenage girls out there. This is going to be a quick intro. Complete transparency, I am halfway through watching Girl Interrupted right now because it's based on the mental hospital that I went to. It's about McLean Hospital. At the time that this book was written, it was called Claremont. Now it's called McLean, and I'm kind of toying around with the idea of doing a podcast episode or some kind of content where I compare what's accurate and what's not, because there's a good amount of things that kind of carry on and a good amount of things that are just so out of practice. If you're not familiar with the movie, it's about this girl who goes to McLean or Claremont. She's struggling with suicidality. She gets a borderline personality disorder diagnosis, and it kind of chronicles her adventures is not the right word, but it chronicles her life in the hospital. At least that's where I've gotten to in the movie. I'm halfway done right now. It's based on a book. The author did actually stay at McLean Hospital. She wrote about her experiences. It was turned into a movie, right? So her stay was a very long time ago. I'm throwing around words. I want to say it's the 60s. Yeah, it is the 60s. Oh my gosh, I'm so on it, guys. So it's about her stay at McLean in the 1960s. I was at McLean in 2018. So a world of a difference between her stay and my stay, and how much mental health care has changed, evolved, become more humane. The practices are different. It's so much more based in evidence-based treatments now. But there's little things I'm noticing, like mouth checks and the tunnels that they do their walks in. We did our walks in, so it's really interesting. Let me know if you guys want me to do an episode, because I think that could be a really fun, interesting segment. Other things happening this week, I am doing Rush. I am mentally exhausted. I had 7 Zooms the first day plus 2 other meetings. I had 5 Zooms today. Things are crazy. I start school tomorrow morning, and then I'm going back to Philly on Sunday. So very busy day. I will keep this intro short and sweet so I can go to sleep and be ready to wake up tomorrow morning. So today's guest is Paige Tonz. She grew up in Arizona and played softball since she was 8 years old. She ended up playing D1 at Northwestern, and after she wrapped up playing softball, she became a girls' mindset mentor, and she coaches thousands of girls, especially athletes, in her programs and workshops, helping them dream bigger, set goals, improve self-confidence, all amazing things. So if you guys want to check out Paige's work after this episode, her Instagram is at Paige Tonz. Her website is the same thing, paigetonz.com. So it will all be linked in today's show notes, but I hope you enjoy this episode. And without further ado, let's dive in. Thank you so much for joining me, Paige. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast, and I can't wait to dive into this amazing conversation.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So I wanted to start by hearing your story and talking about how you got into working with teenagers, working with girls now. So tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I grew up as an athlete and was just really involved with sports, and you'll probably hear me talk about softball a little bit because that was kind of like my main thing. I played club and travel softball. As I went through my journey playing and I ended up playing college at Northwestern, playing softball there as well. Something that I struggled with was the mental side of the game, and I didn't quite realize it while I was in the thick of it, or there wasn't like such a big emphasis on it, as I feel like it's getting bigger and more, there's so much more awareness around it now, which is amazing. Yeah. But I probably would have just told you, like, I don't know, like I just don't always like believe in myself, or I have like self-doubt, or really, really afraid of making mistakes or failing. And I was like the worst at failing. Like it felt like the world was ending anytime I failed or made a mistake or messed up, and just wasn't great at learning from it. Yeah. But didn't quite realize that until like, actually not even really my senior year, but my senior year is when things shifted for me in college, senior year of college. And I think it was more like this feeling of, okay, I only have a year left to play this sport that I love, that I worked so hard at. And like, I didn't have any plans on playing any like sort of professional, or people go overseas and stuff. Yeah. After I didn't have any plans to do that, I was like kind of ready to move on to like, you know, what comes next in life and becoming an adult and all of those things. But I was like, so I had limited time. I was like, so I'm kind of tired of being like frustrated and angry with like not living up to my expectations or what I feel like other people's expectations were me. So I kind of went out in my senior year with this like attitude or mindset of, you know, whatever happens, happens. Like, I'm going to just give it my all. I'm going to do my best and I'm going to put it all out there, and whatever happens, happens. And that finally like allowed me to just like breathe and just released so much pressure that I was putting on myself. So a lot of the stuff was like, a lot of it is all like self-inflicted. I think, of course, like being an athlete, there's a lot of pressures from, you know, coaches and outside perspectives and things like that. But I feel like a lot of it came from myself. And all of a sudden I started playing great. I was doing amazing. I like doubled my batting average, tripled the amount of at-bats that I got, which just meant like more playing time. And I was like having fun doing it. And so once I graduated, and we'll skip like the fun, like limbo of not really knowing what the heck I was doing after school. That's a whole nother story. But I got to a point where I was like, I really want to help girls in this like self-development space, like learning this mental side of the game and using mental training skills and mindset work to really just like enjoy being an athlete and be more successful and getting out of their own ways and building more confidence and believing in themselves. So I had this idea and I started working with girls one-on-one, and that led to working with girls in groups. And now I have a program, and it's just been amazing to be able to work with lots of preteens and teen athletes. They just happen to be girls. I work with girls specifically. So
yeah. No, I really relate a lot to what you said at the beginning about how you didn't even realize that your thought process and how you were like interacting with your environment wasn't how it had to be. Like that was the exact same thing for me with my core belief systems and with feeling depressed and really just being in a position of suffering. I was like, this is just the norm. This is how it's always going to be. And because it's like our own experiences and we've had them for so long, you don't even think like, oh, it could be different. Like I could make this different for myself. This isn't how I have to interact with a sport or with it within my relationships or with school. And so I think that's such a universal experience and something I really relate to. So when we touched base before this recording, we talked about a couple different things that we want to cover that are relevant to both student athletes and teenagers in general that are navigating the ups and downs of teenage life and all the different challenges you experience. So the first thing that I really want to dive into is what you just touched on, which is like letting go of expectations, results, and outcomes. And I think this is true whether you're playing a sport, whether it's with grades in school. It's so relevant right now to the college application process. I remember having like really strong attachment to outcomes with my mental health and with my treatment journey. So I kind of want to dive into that and talk about the process there, what you can do, why we have expectations for certain outcomes, and how we can shift that experience.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, like, it's so hard because there's like, it's funny. I was like working with one of my girls, and I was like, what if you just didn't have any expectations? And that feels like so weird and scary. Like, especially for a lot of us that are like overachievers and we want success and we want a lot out of ourselves. It's like, what? No expectations.
It's like having no control over my life, having no plans.
Crazy. It's right. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, we'll back it up. Since that's totally freaking you out and you're like, I need to have like some sort of expectations. I had a conversation with her about, well, what if it's like you shifted what your expectations were? Yeah. So rather than focusing on the like results-based expectations, looking at like process-based expectations, or basically like things that you can control. Like as an athlete, it's like going into a game and thinking, okay, my expectations are that I'm going to be like the loudest, like the most communicative leader out there. Like I am going to make sure like I am always picking my teammates up. Like that's a big focus. Or one of my expectations is just like really solid, like quality at bats or quality this or quality that, rather than I want to hit, 3 for 5 and have this batting average or this statistic. Because I think especially in sports, we get so wrapped up in like the statistics and what those results are. And those don't always define like how we actually played that day. Just shifting our expectations to, rather than like the results and the statistics, to the things that we can actually do. And I think I get caught up into it as like a normal human being and business owner. Sometimes it's like, okay, I want to have this many people in my program. And like, I don't really have control over any of those things. I have control over like how much I'm reaching out to people, or getting gritty with that, or sending personal messages, or making sure that I'm showing up on my Instagram stories or whatever it might be. But like just shifting those expectations to be things that we can control rather than the results and the outcomes. Because I think when we only focus on those results and those outcomes and we don't hit them, it's like that expectation hangover that we feel. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't hit that goal and I'm like the worst person ever. Or like, I'm never going to get there. And that's like when all that negative like self-talk or just beating ourselves up kind of goes into place, I guess.
Absolutely. I think I was listening to a podcast recently. It was The Skinny Confidential, and it was one of the episodes with Ed Milet. And he was talking about how we're so attached to these outcomes, whether it's, again, like a certain score or a certain number, these really tangible things, because we think it'll impact how we feel. Like, we think if we get to this certain goal, whether like it's, if we think through like the podcast, a certain number of downloads, a certain number of followers, a certain number of episodes, we'll feel fulfilled or pride or happy. And that's not necessarily the case. Like, say you get there, you reach the dream number of downloads, you reach the dream number of followers, but you haven't invested in the experience and how you're feeling and getting to that emotional point. Like, that's why would this external tangible thing get you to that mental health perspective? And I think that's so true with what you're talking about with sports as well. If you think you get to a certain amount of points or you get to this certain goal, it'll automatically change your outlook, your mood, and your belief systems. But that's not the case if you don't do the work internally. And I think we forget that. We forget to focus on the experience and the emotions that are tied to things and how strong of a role that plays, rather than just the external tangible goals that we hit. And I think that's a society thing as well. Like, we are very focused on checking these certain boxes and like graduating and getting into college and getting a job and having these external forms of success. But if you don't do the emotional work, if you're not internally working towards what those goals are going to get you, you're left with nothing. And then once you get to that point, you're like, well, what do I do now? You're just completely overwhelmed. You don't know what to do because you're in the exact same spot. And I think that's something that it takes a long time to realize, and I think is super prevalent in teens as well.
Totally. I was actually just talking to a girl who wants to be a teacher, and we were just talking about schooling and like growth and fixed mindset kind of stuff. And I'm so glad that schools are starting to teach the growth mindset and what that looks like, just because I feel like even looking back at my college experience, I went to an incredible college, and there's times I'm like, wait, like I mean, yes, I like in the grand scheme of things, and I feel like graduated a while ago now, but in the grand scheme of things, yes, I probably learned a ton of things, but I look back, I'm like, what did I even learn in like some of these classes? And I like took these tests and, you know, wrote these papers, but did I really like even learn anything? Like, and I think too, like when we fail, like I remember my freshman year, I think I like failed my econ test, and like, all I wanted to do was just pass. Like, I didn't care if I really understood the material or like what it meant to me or any of those things. I was just like, oh my gosh, just please let me pass, or else like I'm a failure kind of thing. And I think that
that's what we're told. It's like, that is the messaging. Like, it's called, you're failing a test. It's not like, oh, you got a 60 on a test. Like, the narrative there and the language is like, you failed the test. And so it's like, there's no like shortcoming on you if like you have those beliefs tied there, because that's the messaging that we've received throughout the entire school system and through our society. And it's so common to have that experience.
Yeah, totally. I think I heard one time they're like, okay, if you get like a 40% on a test, it's like, instead of saying you failed it, just being like, well, at least I knew 40% of the information. Now I got to figure out how to learn like the other, 50 to 60% of it, and actually learn instead of just trying to pass a test. I feel like that happens all the time in classes. Like, okay, let's just figure out, what do I need to pass the test? Instead of actually absorbing and learning and growing in these classes.
100%.
Yeah, totally.
No,
you're probably really like in the thick of it right now.
Oh my God, totally. No, it's so funny because like, even when you're in the classroom and you listen to the questions that people asking, it's like, oh, is that on the test? Like, do I need to know that? Like, okay, yeah, like we get that you're teaching this, but like, do we need to know that? And it's just that's how the curriculum is built. And I think this was true of public school. Was true in high school and middle school. It's like, your grade a lot of the time is predominantly made up of these test scores. It's not made up, and that's the way we test what you've learned. But again, like, it's not always an accurate reflection of what you learned. It's also complicated, and there's not like a straightforward answer, but it's so true. You're just checking those boxes, and it's very stressful. It does terrible things for your mental health to be navigating that and have all of that pressure in these extremely high achieving environments in college, surrounded by people who are just as motivated and have the same fear of failing that you do. And so it's you need the self-compassion. You need to be able to shift that narrative internally and understand that, okay, even if you get like literally a 12% on the test, that doesn't change your worth as a person. It's a narrative that you have to rewrite for yourself, and it really does help with your mental health and navigating the situation, because when you look back at this from 5 years from now, like you just talked about, you don't remember that test or what was on it, or it's not impacting your life now. Like we think it will, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't. So I think another huge part of shifting this narrative around success versus failure is the people that you're around. When you're in really high achieving environments, and there can be that really toxic narrative of comparing grades or comparing performance. This week's episode is brought to you by Magic Mind. If you don't already know, I'm starting my spring semester at Penn. I have more classes. The workload is really ramping up, so Magic Mind is an essential in my routine and my toolkit. Magic Mind is a productivity drink with all natural ingredients like adaptogens to help decrease stress, nootropics to boost blood flow and cognition, and matcha to keep you focused. So it comes in this little bottle. It has the cutest packaging. Picture like a little wellness shot or a juice shot. That's what it looks like. You can keep them refrigerated or at room temperature. What I do is I drink one in the morning with my cup of coffee, and it helps me focus for the rest of the day. It doesn't taste like those green powders or drops that you might add to your drink. Because they add honey for sweetener, you don't have that like bitter experience. It tastes good, and you drink it with your cup of coffee to increase the effectiveness of the caffeine, the energy boost, and really focus in on the tasks that you have to do for the day. So if you are a student or a busy individual who wants to improve their productivity, decrease procrastination, brain fog, and fatigue, add Magic Mind into your morning routine. It's a super simple addition with profound effects. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to magicmind.co/persisted. That's magicmind.co/persisted, and use code persisted for 20% off. Again, that's code persisted for 20% off Magic Mind. So I want to talk about surrounding yourself by people that believe in you and that support you and are helpful to your mental health, rather than being like a really toxic, competitive, environment, which can be really difficult to navigate.
Yeah, totally. So I have like I just have this like memory and this story that always sticks out when I think about this, and being on a team as an athlete. Sometimes you can't control all the time who you're surrounded by, right? Like, maybe it's like your professor or classmates, or like you don't really have a choice at some points, unless they're like in your own free spare time, or could be family. Sometimes we don't have a choice, but especially as an athlete on a team, you have these teammates, and you might not like love every single one of them, or might not be best friends with every single one of them. And there are times when there are like those people that, I don't want to call them like toxic, but maybe they just like complain a lot, or they're really negative.
They're not energizing you. It's like not a positive experience for you to interact with them.
Sucking the energy out of everything. Or like anytime you go to practice and someone's like, "Oh, I can't believe we're doing this again today." It's like, oh, like, well, like,
is
just
that
like,
helping?
I have a different attitude about it. And I had this experience where I didn't have a car. So I was getting a ride with some other teammates. And I just remember they were like constantly being super negative and complaining about like coaching and practices and the time commitment and like all of these things. And I think at like one point, like I was getting so tired of it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is
You're like tuck and roll out of the car. I got to get out of this situation.
Yeah, I was like, I gotta get out of here. But I think at one point I finally was just like, okay, if you guys are gonna keep doing this, like either I'm not riding with you guys anymore, or you can stop. Like pick one of the two, because I'm so over it. And I ended up actually just shifting who I got a ride with. And I had to choose myself and my energy, and like protecting my energy, my motivation, and just like myself in that situation, rather than continuing to let it like drain me and be negative. Because if I continued to be around that, it was just going to pull me further and further down. But it's so amazing what happens when you surround yourself with people that believe in you and encourage you and support you and even challenge you at times as well when you feel like you need a little challenge. After I graduated, I joined a CrossFit gym, and I feel like people hear this all the time, we're like the CrossFit cult, but honestly, it was like the absolute best thing that has ever happened to me, because I was just surrounded, and maybe it was just my specific gym that I got to go to. I got really lucky, or I was really blessed, but I was just surrounded by a lot of people that were just motivated to be better and just showed up every day, and it's in like a pretty encouraging environment. And like the more that I got to know those people, I got like my first job from one of those people. I actually met my now husband.
Oh my
goodness. We reconnected there, and like one of my biggest business mentors I met there. And it's just like so many good positive things come from when you surround yourself with people that just like want more out of life and want more for you too, and cheer you on along the way. And that's been like huge for my journey. And then I always encourage my girls, and like, just really pay attention to who you're surrounding yourself with, especially in your own time, with like, how do your friends make you feel? Like what kind of, do they believe in you, or what, the adults that you're around and things like that. So that's just been a really big piece that has been helpful for me. And then also the girls that I get to mentor.
Yeah, no, I was, as you were saying that, I was going to ask, I was like, okay, so like, where are good places to try and connect with these people that are uplifting your energy? And then I was like, wait a minute. If you're looking internally and you're like, okay, where am I showing up as my best self? That's where you'll connect with other people that are showing up as their best selves in that way. Like, I know for me, sometimes I'll be like in a classroom and I'll just be like, have like really low energy. Like, obviously I'm not showing up as my best self. Like, I wouldn't want to connect with me in that situation. Like, that's not a good environment for someone else. Whereas with the podcast, it's somewhere where I'm very passionate and motivated, and people are also showing up in that same way. So I think that's another huge thing, is like, there are different ways that you might like generically like, oh, okay, like people really like running. I feel like that's one where a lot of people come together. But if you hate running and you try and go and connect with like-minded people that are like motivated and positive, like it's just not going to work. So it's like, where do you show up as your best self? Where are you energized and passionate and having a good mindset? Going there and then looking for other people. Do you think that with attitudes and mindsets and possibility and people that you connect with, are you in the stance of like, you get like a first impression and you're like, nope, this isn't going to work out, like there's no gel there? Or are you more like, okay, you like continue to work and grow the relationship? What's your kind of perspective there with surrounding yourself with people that are uplifting to you?
I think that's a really good question. I think that I have like an initial like gut instinct or reaction, or I'm like drawn to that person based off of like their actions. And like, I know this sounds so like cheesy, but like when it comes to social media, like I'm like drawn to certain people, and whether or not it's like them being authentic or not, we kind of figure out as you like continue to get to know the person. But I just feel like I found mentors or connected with people because I can just like feel their energy through their social media, and social media has like a unique way of allowing that to happen through their platform. But I think I kind of lean towards like, it's kind of like a gut instinct, a gut reaction. And maybe I should think about that a little bit more and give people a little bit more time to like grow that relationship, because I'm probably missing things and really great people that maybe I wouldn't put enough like time and effort into, I guess.
Yeah, yes and no, but I also feel like you have that initial like energy that you can connect with people. Like obviously maybe someone's having an off day, so like you continue to kind of be open to a relationship. But I think like when you really gel with someone, like obviously you're going to want to invest in that relationship more than someone that you just like had a terrible interaction with, right? So I think there's a lot of like wisdom there, and I think that's really true.
For sure.
So when you were talking about your story, you talked about self-doubt and insecurity might not be the best word, but kind of talking about fear of failure and perfectionism. And so I want to talk about when you're struggling with self-doubt and how you kind of shifted that into confidence and how people can do that. Because I think this is one of the biggest things that teens struggle with. We see this as statistics. We know how much teens struggle with self-esteem and feeling good about themselves in so many different aspects of life, whether it's body image or school or sports, all these different kinds of things. So what are your tips there? Because I think it's so intertwined with expectations and also your community. All of these things are connected. So let's dive into that.
For sure. So something that I wish that I would have done more is really, I mean, like I definitely noticed when there was more successful like teammates or more successful athletes or students, like you notice, like you're like, oh, like wish I could be like her, or wish I was, you know, performing like that, or, you know, getting the statistics that she's getting. Like why am I not like that? Like we all notice those people that are doing really well, but what I didn't do was I didn't ask them like what was creating that for them, like, and like asking them like how are you feeling so confident like when you go up to bat, or how are you feeling so confident when you're preparing for a test, like just starting to ask questions of like how are they getting that success, or how are they feeling so good about something, or how are they believing in themselves. And I mean, I think it feels weird, or like, oh, they're going to think we're so stupid or something. And I think that happens a lot with girls, teens, preteens, is we think that if we ask questions, like we're going to look dumb.
Yeah.
But I always tell these girls, I'm like, you have to ask questions because it is the shortcut in life.
It really
if you're
is.
asking questions from the people that are like doing it, they're successful, they're doing the things that you want to do, then you are going to get insight from somebody that's already made the mistakes or already figured out what does work or what doesn't work. And of course, everyone's, you know, different, and certain things are going to work for certain people. But I just wish that I would have like picked people's brains more, which is something that I feel like I do a lot now. Anytime like the social media thing, I'm like, oh, like that girl's crushing it, or like that girl, like I love what she's doing, or like how did she get there? I will literally like, I have no shame in reaching out to people on Instagram, even people that I don't know, and just asking them to connect. And if I can just pick their brain a little bit and find out, you know, how they got to where they are. Usually people want to help. Like they love talking, like we love talking about ourselves and sharing, you know, how we've gotten to where we are, and laughing about, oh, like this thing really didn't work, so like try this instead. Like people love to give advice and help. And if someone says no, or doesn't have the time, or just doesn't respond, like just move on to the next person. It's usually not a personal thing. It's honestly usually like a time thing, or they're just busy. So
no, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the episode, where we're so focused on the outcome and our expectations that we really lose the emphasis on the process, the internal experience, how people get there. And I think that's just such a common thread, and that's tied to your relationships. Your relationships are a huge part in getting to that end goal and having a positive emotional experience throughout. And the same thing with your inner dialogue and your self-doubt. And so it's all connected. It's crazy. What is your advice for teen athletes and student athletes who are struggling with feeling that balance, that control, that ownership of navigating the situation? They're like, I'm overwhelmed. I'm feeling like I'm struggling with this. I'm not feeling confident. What is your advice to someone who's in that headspace right now?
That's a really good question. So I think like my first piece of advice is to like seek that help, reach out to someone that, you know, a lot of student athletes in college, they have access to sports psychologists and people. I wish that I would have taken advantage of those opportunities a lot more in college. So people that can help you in that space, I would say like starting to reach out to those people, or mentors that you could see, or even if it's like a senior or like an older player, like reaching out for help or asking them like, how did you get through this? Like, this is so overwhelming. There's so much to do. Or like, I know freshman, like that early freshman year feels insane. Like you're getting all these things thrown at you and trying to figure it out. So I think reaching out for help, but I also think just like, this sounds so simple and like fundamental, but just taking some time to slow down and just breathe and reminding yourself that everyone else is going through the same things and we're all struggling with certain things, and it's okay to struggle. And I think it's just that it's really learning that self-awareness of like what you're telling yourself and what you're thinking about. Because if you continue to tell yourself, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed, then we're going to constantly feel overwhelmed.
You're almost manifesting it. Yeah.
So it's like that starting to really work and shift, how you're thinking about your situation or yourself, and having like better, and it doesn't only have to be positive self-talk. Like, it doesn't have to be like cheesy positive self-talk, but just like telling yourself different things or seeing something in a different perspective. I think that that's like one of the biggest things. And even like girls that go through my program, even if they didn't learn anything, they have so much, like such better self-awareness of what they think about themselves, what they're saying, what they're thinking about, and knowing like, okay, like I probably shouldn't be like constantly thinking about this or like saying these things. So what do I do now? So at least they get to that point and have that like that self-awareness, and then do a lot of work on like shifting those thoughts and having that better self-talk.
And the awareness is the first part of change. Like, if you're not aware of, I don't want to say problem, but if you're not aware that something doesn't feel good to you, or you're not aware that you want to shift something, no change is going to occur. Like, you mean like maybe it's possible if something accidentally shifts, but like the awareness really is that first piece, and it's so powerful. And that was just such a common thread throughout my mental health journey. I want to talk about what your favorite resources are for improving confidence, improving self-talk for teenage girls, because I think that you can have these conversations, you can hear, okay, like I gotta shift my narrative, I gotta ask for help, but that can be really daunting. So whether it's books, podcasts, people to follow on social media, a habit you can implement, what do you recommend?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that there's not a lot of, I mean, maybe there's, I don't know. I feel like a lot of my girls don't listen to podcasts and things like that, but it's something that I wish that I would have done or listened to more audibles. I think that when we're like, oh, like we have to like in school, we're reading so much, we're doing so much homework, to read another book, but just to like get on Audible and start listening to some different like self-development and leadership, and just looking around and finding some things. I mean, I definitely have like a list of like audibles and books and things that I think are super helpful.
I want to hear them. Give me like your 3 favorites.
Oh, so I really love, oh my gosh, I'm like the worst about titles and authors. Amber Ray, she has what is it called? Choose Wonder Over Worry. See, it was like this one is so good. This is like my favorite. I think this is one of my favorite books of all time. I have so many tags in here and just highlights and things, because it has lots of journal prompts and stuff. So I think like that one's a really great one. She's coming out with another one. I have it pre-ordered already. Podcasts for girls and teens. I would say some of my favorite ones are like more business. But I would say like one of my friends has a really great one, and it's called Alpha Girl Confidence. And they're really like short, quick, easy to digest tips and mental training skills. And then I have a couple of other friends who they mentor girls. They don't have to be athletes or anything. Just it's called Girls Mentorship, and they have a podcast. And theirs is really great as well. So I think theirs is just called Girls Mentorship Podcast. So those are a couple of ones that I would suggest for girls. But I would say this book is so good. Choose Wonder or Worry. I think we tend to worry a lot.
Yeah.
And that's when like the doubts and the fears and all these, and she talks a lot about how to shift that. And like I just felt like it really resonated for me as like an overachiever, which is what I think a lot of the girls that I see and I work with, they want a lot out of themselves and they want more, but they get in their own way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that one's really good with the journal prompts in them.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, like shameless plug, I have a tool, a freebie, which is a self-talk practice. So it's just like a kind of like a video series of learning about how important self-talk is, how to start shifting that. And then it comes with like some iPhone like wallpapers and some fun things like a poster, affirmations poster in there. So it's kind of like a fun little few things to start thinking about what you're thinking about.
I love it. What are the most common concerns, worries, fears, challenges that girls are coming to you with? Is it like struggling with relationships? Is it more internal? Is it again wanting to like achieve those external goals? What are the things you're constantly hearing that teens are like, I need support with this?
I think one of the biggest things is moving past mistakes, moving past failures and getting over those things, whether it's on the field or court or if it's in school or, you know, at home or things like that, especially as like they get into the college recruiting and college admissions. Like they're like, okay, like I'm sending, you know, emails to coaches or I'm, you know, applying and I'm not getting in. And they feel like it like so personal and like that.
I mean, how can you not have that narrative? Like you are showing someone all the best parts of yourself to possibly, and a lot of the times get rejected. Like it feels personal. And I know like it's like not personal. There's so much more that goes into it. Like there's so much that's at play, but it's really hard to get out of that mindset of, because it really, really does feel personal because you're sharing so much about yourself and the decision is like being made about you.
Yeah. And the same thing for mistakes is like, they think that, you know, people are going to make fun of them or think differently about them if you don't get into this school or you make a mistake on the field. And it's really figuring out and working with them on shifting the way they think about it and seeing failure. I think for so long we think like failure is bad, and starting to have like shift our minds to this concept that, okay, failure is just like a stepping stone, right? It's just one more thing that's going to help me learn. It's going to help me get better for the next opportunity in front of me. And once they start to figure that out, they they finally allow themselves to release like that like beating themselves up feeling.
What is one thing that listeners can do within the next couple of days, weeks, to see or start to experience like a shift in their confidence, their inner monologue, their kind of interactions within their lived experiences?
Yeah, I think one of the greatest things is to just write down your thoughts. And that seems really broad, but like when you're having negative or frustrated or like overwhelmed thoughts, like just write them down. Like it's almost like venting to the paper. And like, okay, I'm really not like feeling this, or I don't feel motivated. And like, I can never sit down and get my homework done. It takes me like hours and hours and I'm wasting time. Or I don't know. I'm like totally making up all these thoughts. Like just getting them down and just noticing, okay, like, are these just thoughts or are they facts? And figuring out, okay, how can I how can I see this differently, or how can I look at this in a more positive perspective? So maybe it's like, you know, we write down like, I feel like I'm going to fail this algebra test in the next couple of days. It's like, instead thinking about, okay, well, I have a few more days to really work on like what I need to know or learn the material better or ask for help. Like I can use my resources to feel more confident in the test rather than being like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail. So just like writing them down and just starting to notice, okay, like I'm having those negative thoughts. They're happening. And then the hard part is figuring out what to do with them and shifting those. But that comes with practice and just writing down those positive reinforcements or affirmations or new beliefs that you need.
Mm-hmm. I love that so much. So if listeners want to continue to engage with your content, work with you, tell me where they can find you, different ways to continue to work on their confidence and their inner monologue and all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And that kind of what I just shared, like what's something that they can do in the next couple of days, that self-talk practice, the free self-talk practice that I have is a great like guide for that. And it'll really help. They're like practice writing down new affirmations, and it's like uncomfortable at first writing like nice things about yourself, and it feels weird, but it gets them to start to practice and think about that. So they can find that on my website, which is just paigetonz.com, exactly how my name is spelled. And then I hang out a lot on Instagram. I'm on there with stories and tips and inspiration and, testimonials from my girls for like hope, and looking at like what, if they do, start to work on their mindset or focus on their mindset, like what could happen there, and showing them like what is possible. So I think those are like the two main places that they would get a lot of resources and value from.
I love that. I just think it's so important, the gift that you can give yourself when you start to invest in your mindset and your inner monologue and your confidence and your self-esteem as a teenager. It's like one of the hardest points in your life, and I think it's a kind of universal experience that's when you're struggling with the most, with those internal thoughts, with your self-esteem, with how you feel about yourself. And yet if you can conquer those feelings, those thoughts, those beliefs at that point, like you are set. No matter what you're experiencing throughout college, throughout later on in life, like you have the tools in your toolbox to be able to handle those challenges with grace and with ease because you've done it before. And I think it's just to be able to invest in that early on is so powerful and so helpful. And I can't recommend it enough. So I absolutely love that you're doing that with teens.
That just reminded me of like, even those negative thoughts that come up, or like self-doubt or like you're not having like a lot of self-worth for like about, I don't even know how to like say that, you don't have a lot of self-worth or those things, like that's okay. Like, that's like those thoughts and those things are totally normal. And that's one of the things I always want my girls to know that I'm working with is like, it's okay to have negative thoughts. And by the way, they're not going away. Like that's just you like trying to figure out how to get better. And it just means that you care. So just knowing, even like if you write down those negative thoughts and those fears or doubts or whatever they are, like those are normal and those are totally okay. It's just figuring out how to shift them so that you can like live your in your purpose and be the best version of you and enjoy the process and things like that. So I just was
absolutely.
Like, oh, that just came to me right
there. No, I completely agree. It's really about being able, like, you're always going to experience them. You're always going to have low moments and struggle with these things, but it's being able to navigate them and work through them without like letting them control you and dictate everything in your life. And so again, it's an amazing gift and tool that you can give yourself, and it's applicable to so many situations and just so important. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad we got to sit down and have this conversation. And thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to just talk about all the mental stuff. It's always so fun to hang out and talk about this stuff.
I completely agree. Well, awesome. In case you skipped the end, Paige and I talk about shifting your expectations to be process-based rather than things that you can't control. We talk about expectation hangover. We talk about test and performance anxiety and the difference between truly learning versus just trying to pass a test or get through a benchmark. We talk about the importance of asking for help to those that you look up to for advice and insight. We talk all about improving self-confidence, self-talk, Paige's favorite resources for teens that are looking to improve both their confidence and self-talk, and so much more. If you enjoyed this week's episode, please share it with a friend or family member who you think would enjoy it. Make sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe wherever you're listening, and for more bonus content information, my Instagram is at shepersistedpodcast. If you tag me in a story of you listening, I'll repost it and give you a little shout out. And my website is shepersistedpodcast.com. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next week.